This is Keith reporting from Lincoln, Nebraska. I hear sirens behind me. I got some Star Trek fan fiction for you. Let's see if I can do this. Captain's Log 3412.5. Supplemental. Chief Engineer Scott has requested my physical presence in engineering to report an anomaly that will put the Enterprise at risk. What is it, Scott? Kirk asked as he entered engineering. Why couldn't you use the communicator? Scott led Kirk over to a display panel near the dilithium crystal chamber and pointed at the screen. See that? Scott asked. Antimatter is very, very hard to come by, and we are down to 10%. If we can't figure out where we are losing, we won't be able to achieve warp drive. And we are currently in the middle of a galaxy with few options. Our top impulse drive will take a century to get us to a habitable planet. When did you notice? Did you get an alert? Kirk asked. Negative. The alert system has been disabled, Scott replied, and I have no idea who did it. Whoever did has enough knowledge of the system to not need a password or leave a trace. Are we in immediate danger? Kirk asked. No, but whoever did this may have other ideas in mind, Scott replied. Warp 2 is the best we can achieve for now, and that won't last forever. How is antimatter supplied? Kirk asked. We have to get it from a starbase, Scott replied, and it can take weeks to recharge the cells when we are scheduled for maintenance. Kirk used the communicator on the wall and called Spock. Yes, Captain, Spock replied. Spock, Scott has alerted me to a potential situation. In your estimation, how long can we survive with the current supplies on board? Kirk asked. Spock paused as he did the calculations in his head. Approximately 90 days, Spock replied. Kirk turned to Scott and asked, will the antimatter affect life support? No, it's on a different system altogether, Scott replied. That power comes from a magnetic field and battery system that recharges automatically. Spock asked, may I ask what's wrong? We are going to lose warp drive if we can't figure out how to get more antimatter, Kirk replied. Interesting, Spock replied. Meet me in the conference room, Kirk said, and motioned for Scott to follow. In the conference room, Kirk, Scott, McCoy, Spock's intern, Darla Wren, and security officer Dickerson met to discuss the alarming situation. Now what? McCoy asked. He was angry and concerned. How did this happen? I think I know, Spock replied. Well, don't keep us in the dark, McCoy snapped. Spock looked to his intern and raised his eyebrow. Do you wish to explain? He asked her. Why are you looking at me? Intern Wren replied. She was a master-level student from Starfleet with 6 weeks to graduation. You are the only person besides me that could alter the computer and drain the antimatter, Spock replied. That means nothing. Maybe you did it, Darla snapped back. Who has motive? Spock asked. McCoy asked, what are you getting at? I fired Miss Wren as my intern 2 weeks ago for gross negligence and incompetence. I felt she was looking for a way to get back at me, and I think she has found it. She must not be that incompetent if she was able to drain the antimatter and hide it, McCoy replied. Obviously, Spock replied. You're wrong, Mr. Spock, and you will never prove I did anything, Darla replied. McCoy said, from what I understand, we will have plenty of time to figure out what happened, at least until the supplies run out. Kirk replied, all we have to do is contact Starfleet and they will send out a rescue ship. I wouldn't worry. I'm sure she considered Starfleet would intervene, Spock said. I wouldn't be surprised if she had a backup plan. Well, do you? McCoy yelled. I have nothing to say, Darla replied. Are you planning to blow up the Enterprise? McCoy asked. What else have you done? If Mr. Spock is so smart, he can figure it out, Darla replied. He seems to have all the answers. What are you going to do, Spock? McCoy yelled. She's your intern. Former, Spock replied. I suggest torture. That's a bit much, even for you, Spock, McCoy replied. Do you have any other ideas? Spock asked. She sabotaged the Enterprise, and she will not allow a rescue. If you want to survive, I suggest you come up with a better way. I have a truth-inducing drug, McCoy said. Let's try that first. Darla pulled a phaser from under her dress and aimed it at McCoy. Not in this lifetime, Doctor. You won't get any information from me. Spock leaned over, and before she could defend herself, received a Vulcan nerve pinch. That's my 3 pages. Right over here, I have a link to all of my stories. Just click on that right there. I have like 25 of them. These cards are pretty cool. I hope this audio worked out. I came here on purpose. But check out all of my Star Trek fan fiction right here on Keith Trim Art.